Welcome to Handmade with Holly. My name is Holly Michelson, and I'm an independent Stampin' Up! Demonstrator from Del Mar, New York, just outside of Albany. Today, I'm going to bring you some really fun slider cards. This is the third video in my series on slider cards, and today I'm going to be focusing on designs that we can make using our paper pumpkin kits. This one comes from the Berry Comforting Paper Pumpkin Kit that was released in December 2020. I have 3 other samples that I'll be sharing with you at the end of the video from other kits, but today we're going to make a slider card using pieces and parts from the current paper pumpkin kit called Safari Celebration, and this kit was released in February of 2022, and it is currently the active kit. Now, before I go ahead and get started and make a slider card with you and show you my other paper pumpkin samples, just a quick reminder, if you're not already subscribed to my YouTube channel, please click on the red word subscribe and then click on the notifications bell so that YouTube will notify you each time I upload a new video. If you've seen any of the prior videos in my series, then you may already know how to make a slider card. I will make one on this video today in case you haven't seen the other videos, but we'll probably go through the steps a little bit quickly. I previously released a video that featured the Driving By stamp set and the Horizon dies and the New Horizons Designer Series paper. And you can see this is also an adorable slider card. And in that video, I had a number of other versions using other designer series paper and other combinations to really feature all the cute little cars, the Love Bug, the van, and the convertible. So I will put a link to this video at the end if you want to check that video out. And I also have another video that featured 9 other slider cards, this time in the vertical direction, so the slider pulls upward. This one features Seize the Day with a few stamps from Well Done, and in that video I have an alternate card to this one, as well as 7 other samples featuring other stamp sets. So if you're looking for inspiration on slider cards, you want to check out those videos, and I will link to video number 2 at the end as well. Again, I want to make this a quick video for you since you may have already seen how to make the sliders. We're going to start off with our card base. My card base is a piece of 8.5 by 5.5 cardstock, so that's a half sheet of full size of cardstock. And then I'm just going to go ahead and make 2 score lines, the first one being at the 1/2 inch mark, and then the second one being at 4.5. Now, regardless of whether you're making slider cards that are vertical or horizontal, those same 2 score lines are universal for all of the styles of cards. So I'm going to come in and burnish my score lines now. What I like to do is finger fold first and get the fold started. And then I'm just going to take my bone folder and give that a good crease to help break down the fibers and ensure I have a nice fold. So I have my card base. I'm actually going to use it in this direction so that the piece with the tab is on top and will fold downward. That's my preference. You can do it either way, but I prefer to do it in that direction. It ensures that the slider piece gets tucked inside the flap. So I started off with a card base like this that came out of my kit. And because the measurements for the slider cards require that this score line be in a different position, I wasn't able to use this pre-scored card base as my base. I actually needed a score mark about right there. Rather than fuss with the fact that that was pre-scored, I instead made my card base from a piece of thick basic white. I'm using the card base, however, to make my layer. If you see this Calypso coral here, this is actually the back of the card base that came in Berry Comforting. It's not a piece of cardstock. So I pre-cut the card base right here so that I had a 3 3/4 inch piece. And then once I had this piece, I cut off a 1/4 inch on the side so that it would be 5 1/4. So 5 1/4 by 3 3/4. And that gives me the size that I need for right here on the front of the card. I'm gonna go ahead and mount this down. I apologize in advance. I may run out of Stampin' Seal. I am at the very end of my roll and it is currently on back order. So we'll see how far we get and then we may have to substitute something else in. All right, put some adhesive on the back of that layer and mount it down, leaving an even border around the 4 edges. Now I'm going to come in and I'm going to make a slit in the card so that my slider can slide. Now, generally speaking, I make the slit at 1 3/4 inches, but based on the shape or the embellishment that I'm going to make slide, sometimes I need to adjust that, as I did here with my bear. I will provide a downloadable for you that will have the complete supply list as well as the measurements. Some of the measurements vary slightly from card design to card design, so I will indicate that. And I'll also let you know what additional products I use in addition to the kit. So for instance, on this card, I added a 1/2 sheet of thick basic white cardstock. I'm doing the same for this card as well. And I also added in this piece of Daffodil Delight Ruched ribbon, and we'll be adding in ribbon for this card as well. So we're going to be making this adorable elephant the subject of our slider card. And the reason why I chose this elephant is she's on roller skates, and I just thought she would be adorable to slide along. There are other cute animals in this kit as well. We have a monkey in a hula hoop, and we also have an antelope with a little celebratory banner. I've seen a lot of cute samples with people using the wobbles to make their monkey wobble, and I think that would be adorable. But because the elephant is on roller skates, she's just perfect to slide, and so we're going to use her. Okay, so typically I put the slit in my slider cards at 1 3/4 inches. So that would be right here. That's inclusive of the tab that we're going to fold under. And you can see that here on this driving by card where the slit is down here. Because our elephant is so tall and she's gonna span the whole height of the card, I probably don't want my slit all the way down here. It would probably be better if my slit was more in the middle. So instead of doing it at 1 3/4, I'm gonna do it at 2 1/2. And when I make the slit at 2 1/2, it's gonna be about here, but the way the elephant will attach will actually, there'll be a tab coming out, and it's going to attach more like down here because the tab will come down. So I think putting it up that high is probably a good idea. We'll be able to get the support for the elephant just below the center of the elephant. So that's my plan. Now, we also have to decide where our slit is going to start and where our slit is going to end. So knowing that our elephant has her arm outstretched, we don't want her to go too far where she's hanging too far over. So, and we also want to be able to fit her on the card without having her over here. So I'm going to make my slit at about 1 1/2 and bring it over to 4 1/2. That's going to allow my card to slide roughly 3 inches out. And that 3 inches is going to allow me to see the full sentiment amazing. So you do, as you're planning this, have to plan what are you going to be stamping on the inside, how much pull are you going to need for that to come out. So like if you look at the bear, this card does not come out very far, whereas in the driving by sample it comes out much farther. What controls how far the inside pulls out is where you place this slit. And so I want to be mindful of keeping my elephant when the card is closed on the front surface of the card, where my elephant's going to be as I slide it over, but also thinking about how far do I need the card to pull out in order to read my sentiment. So in this case, it would be good if I had about 3 inches of give to pull out the card. And so for that reason, I'm going to start at about 1.5, and I'm going to finish it at about 4.5 and use that as my length of slide. So I'm going to bring my blade up here to the 1.5 inch mark, place it down, and then I'm going to go ahead and slice over to about 4.5. And I'm going to run it back and forth just a few times to make sure I've got a good clean slit there, since we're cutting through not only the thick basic white, but we're also cutting through the card base that was in the paper pumpkin kit. And you can see that my slit cut all the way through. If for some reason yours didn't, you could take a craft knife and finish off the slit and ensure that it's cutting all the way through. So now that we have our slit in our base, we're going to go ahead and take a 1/2 inch by 2.5 inch piece of basic white cardstock, and we're going to insert this into our slit. This is the piece that's going to slide along as we move the inside of the card. I'm going to go ahead and tuck that in there. Then I'm going to put down one of my last Stampin' Dimensionals. I have gone through quite a few of these making all these videos, and this is going to keep my tab from slipping inside the card. Does that make sense? And we can see on the back side, we have this piece. Now, I cut it at 1/2 by 2.5 inches, and that's kind of my standard starter size. Because this tab is so close to the edge, that doesn't happen when my slit is further down here, but my slit was more in the center, so this tab is close to the edge. I'm just going to snip off a little bit of it so there's no risk of this rubbing at the seam or creating any friction that could prevent the slider from moving. And I'm going to go ahead and bring in my tear-in tape. This tear-in tape was actually free from Stampin' Up! In the Gifts Galore paper pumpkin, which came out in November of 2021. If you're a newer subscriber and you don't have it, you can purchase tear-in tape through the regular Stampin' Up! Catalog. We're going to go ahead and put that on our tab and give that a finger burnish, or you could use your bone folder to burnish that as well. Make sure that's well adhered, and the same on this piece. We're going to adhere that well there. Now, before I go ahead and keep assembling that, let's go ahead and pop in our finger notch. You can see here I have a notch in the card that indicates to the recipient that they want to pull this out. So I'm going to go ahead and use a 1-inch circle punch to make this notch. Stampin' Up! Retired its 1-inch circle punches, so you might have one from before. If you don't, there's also a small die that can be found in the Layering Circles dies, or there's also a small die in the Paradise Palms set. You could actually use this little die here from Paradise Palms. So a number of things that you could use to make your circle. Now I also need to make the notch in the back layer, and so I'm just gonna kind of close the card, line that up, and punch out a second notch in the back. I did that separately to protect my punch. This is pretty thick considering I have thick basic white and I have a paper pumpkin card base. That's pretty thick. It was definitely a bit of a press to get it through those 2 layers. It probably would have been very difficult to get it cleanly through the back layer as well. So I did them separately, and that's a good way to protect your punches as well. So this is the inside layer that's going to pull out and give the sentiment amazing. And so we're going to mount that on the inside like this. It's going to be face down. That way when it pulls out, the text will be visible on the front of the card. So I'm going to use my Take Your Pick tool to remove the protection for the adhesive right there. Now this is sticky. And I'm going to mount my inside. Let's make sure our tab is straight. And I'm going to mount the inside. I'm going to line up the right edge with the right side of the card and then center the piece from top to bottom so that it's not going to rub on either side, and kind of give that a press. Now, if we try to pull that, we can see it slides right out. And so we're ready to go ahead and seal the card up. Just going to remove the backing there. And when you bring this down, you want to make sure that this insert is tucked inside, right? We don't want this insert to stick to our adhesive. We want it tucked inside that little pocket. So I'm going to go ahead and fold that over and bring this down and press. And so now my card base is sealed and ready to go. We need to stamp a hole on the inside piece so that we can adhere our ribbon. If you have the detailed trio punch, you could use that. You could use a regular hole punch. I found this ribbon punch was the easiest for me to manipulate. It just gave me the best visibility into the hole, and I liked how it made kind of a ribbon shape cut. So that was my personal preference, but any sort of circle hole punch or the detailed trio punch would work as well. And then what I like to do is I like to bring in some reinforcements to protect that hole. So as people pull the ribbon, they don't rip the cardstock. And so I got my reinforcements from the Tailored Tags dies. And this piece right here makes these little shapes that you can put over the hole to really just protect where that ribbon's going to be. So we're ready there, and now we're going to decorate our card front. So we're going to decide where we'd like to place things. Our elephant is going to be approximately right here, and so I'm going to think about my embellishments. Now, these leaves came directly from the Paper Pumpkin kit. This sentiment label came from the Paper Pumpkin kit. What I added was my own fresh freesia ink. The kit came with rich razzleberry. You could absolutely use rich razzleberry. I kind of have this thing where I always try to protect my clear stamps and make them not turn hot pink. So I tend to not use rich razzleberry, real red, and a few colors like that on my photopolymer stamps. So you'll often notice that I choose to pick a different color that isn't likely to stain my stamps as much, and so I went with a fresh freesia. But honestly, the rich razzleberry would look beautiful. This paper here is actually rich razzleberry as well. I used the stamp set that came with the kit, and there was a stamp that said, "You did it," right here. So I used that to stamp on the label from the kit. And there was also a stamp that said "Amazing." So "You did it, amazing." And I used both of those for my sentiments. In addition to that, there's this cute little cupcake stamp. And so I used the cupcake stamp. I pre-stamped that with Tuxedo Memento Black, and then I colored it with a crumb cake and light fresh freesia blend, and I fussy cut it. I did all of that in advance to save you time while you're viewing. In order to get this leaf, I brought in some coordinating designer series paper that's called Artfully Composed, and this has some really beautiful tropical leaf designs in the paper pack. And I use this sheet right here. I fussy cut out just a sliver of the designer series paper so that I could get it into my Stampin' Cut and Emboss machine. And then I took this die from the Artfully Layered bundle, and I used this to further cut out my leaf. That's totally optional if you don't have this bundle or you don't have this designer series paper. Not to worry, there's plenty of great leaves that can be found in the kit. I specifically brought in this leaf just because I wanted to show you that it coordinated. So there are lots of leaves in the kit. I could have just as easily brought in one of these. In fact, maybe I should do that and make it totally just a paper pumpkin. But my thought was just to show you that there was some paper and other elements that you could bring in to further enhance your card. let's just go ahead and assemble. While we're assembling, we want to be mindful of where our elephant is going to be and think about that for our placement, right? So our elephant's going to go to there. I'm going to go ahead and, I like this leaf, so I'm going to put it down. I'm going to try to keep that from obstructing my slider, and it's doing okay, but you want to make sure that you don't do anything that's going to obstruct your slider mechanism. These in, I'm maybe going to put this up here. Again, want to be sure that I stay away from that slider. So I'm just going to put some little bits of adhesive around the tips of some leaves. Little bit of extra adhesive there that I could just pull off with my finger. And I'm going to go ahead and put this as close to the top as I can to, again, keep that out of the way of my slider. Now, I want to put down my sentiment. Go ahead and put my last leaf maybe down in this corner to help fill out the design, but also trying to keep this away from the elephant where it needs to slide. So I like all of that. I'm going to go ahead and remove the protective backing off the dimensional, and I actually think I'm going to stack 2 dimensionals, and this is going to make my elephant come up a little bit higher when I stack 2 dimensionals, and then I don't have to worry about it getting caught on those leaves. So I'm 2 dimensionals high now. I've made like a little dimensional sandwich, and I'm going to go ahead and put my elephant down. I'm also going to bring in some additional dimensionals. See how the elephant's head is a little bit lower? We have a lot of height here and then it's tilting down. I'm going to put some dimensional behind the head. Now, we don't want to take the protective backing off this time because we want it to slide. We don't want it to stick, but I'm going to put the sticky side on the back of the elephant's ear. And then I'm going to do another piece. I'm just using up the edges since I'm at the end of my sheet here. And I'm going to put another piece over here under the elephant's face and a little bit under the trunk. What's kind of nice about this is it supports the elephant's head a little bit so it doesn't sag. And when I pull that out, not only is the backing of the dimensional kind of slippery and it helps it slide, the elephant's head is supported, and we're also making sure that nothing is catching on any of those leaves. So I'm really happy with this. I think it came out great, but I love this little cupcake. It's not a birthday card, so I don't really need a cupcake, but it's so cute. So I'm gonna go ahead and put the cupcake in the elephant's hand just because I want to. We're celebrating this amazing person. So I'm just going to put that right there over the elephant's hand, making sure I don't have any adhesive that is, you know, nothing's tacky on the back of that to stick to my card. All right. And then our last step is that we're going to go ahead and add some ribbon. So I brought 3 different options tonight. I have Bumblebee in color 2020 to 2022 ribbon. This recently retired. It may still be on the clearance rack. It was on the clearance rack for a while. I'm not sure if it's still there. Could use that if you had it, and it's a perfect match to that paper. Or I brought in the open weave ribbon. I have it in soft succulent, which matches my elephant, and I have it in fresh freesia, which matches the roller skates, the leaf, and the sentiment. I think I'm gonna go with the soft succulent. Given that we already have the fresh freesia in a number of places, I like the idea of using the soft succulent. I need about 5 inches of this ribbon. So I can cut it at 5. I might go just a 1/2 inch more to give me a little spare so I can trim the ends. And then I'm just gonna fold my ribbon in half and then fold it in quarters, and I'm gonna feed it through this hole. Now, sometimes you can use your take your pick tool and kind of poke it through. I don't like to do that with the open weave ribbon. It does leave a small hole in the ribbon. So I do that sometimes with other types of ribbon, but not the open weave. I'm just gonna use my fingers and pull that through. Being gentle as I pull that, I may need to tug a little on the left and the right to get it through and even. And that kind of makes, I think they call it a slip knot. And my slider card is finished. How cute is that? I really think this elephant is adorable. So here's a great alternative idea for your February 2022 paper pumpkin called Safari Celebration. Now, I'd also like to bring in, as promised, a couple of other paper pumpkin samples and give you a few other ideas. We saw the berry comforting kit right here, and that came from this December 2020 paper pumpkin. I used this bear, and I actually used the back of this Calypso coral card base, and I used this piece of paper from the raccoon. So various parts, including the heart. And I brought in my own ink. The ink spot in this was also rich razzleberry. So the same ink spot that we got in February of 2022 is what we got in December of 2020. And I stamped in Pear Pizzazz. So the sentiment label came from the kit. The ink came from my own Pear Pizzazz. I have this sample, You're Amazing, Thinking of You. And this one came from a kit in color. So this kit came out in May of 2020, and I hadn't yet finished it. So I thought it would be really fun to make a slider card, thinking about how clouds move across the sky. I thought that was really fun. This paper pumpkin came with a Misty Moonlight spot. I brought in just jade, and I used the Misty Moonlight on the inside. I also picked up on the ink colors in the rainbow paper, and I used Purple Posy, which is now retired, Pumpkin Pie, and Bumblebee. But at the time that this kit was released, Purple Posy was a current in color. So I stamped those on the inside to pick up on these embellishments that came in the kit. And I also used a sponge dauber to put a little bit of balmy blue on the clouds, give them a little bit of depth and dimension. And then I made some little marks. I don't know if you can see those, but I made some little marks on the clouds using a white gel pen. So that's idea number 3 for your paper pumpkins. Idea number 4, I used Batter Up. And this kit came out in May of 2021. And I still had a few pieces left from this kit. So I turned it into a slider card. And this stamp came from the kit. This was a piece in the kit, and the baseball bat was also a stamp in the kit. What I did do, though, was I took this card base that looks like wood, and I embossed it with the Timber 3D embossing folder to give it some really nice wood texture. And then when you open the slider, the baseball comes out. And I use the stamp from the paper pumpkin set, You're the Best. So you're in a league of your own. You're the best. I thought this was really adorable. So I did bring in the embossing folder here. I brought in the Real Red sheer ribbon, and I used that for my pull tab, which is a great accent to the red here in the embellishment. You just want to make sure when you're closing this card that you tuck it underneath the embellishment. I didn't want this area to be blank, and that's what made me stamp the baseball bats there. It helped fill in the design before the baseball comes out. I think this is so clever and adorable. And I did stamp the hat. This is a stamp from the kit. I stamped the hat using Night of Navy, which is the spot that came in the kit. And then I colored in the rest of it. Like this lighter area is actually a no ink area. The stamp is designed not to put ink there. I wanted my hat to be all blue, so I filled that in with the light Night of Navy Stamp and Blend. So that's my sample number 4 for Paper Pumpkin Alternatives. And by the way, Batter Up Kit is still available in the online store. You can order past Batter Up kits. You can get the full kit. You can order refills, and I believe you can order a joint set with a few other past Paper Pumpkins. So this is current right now. This one is sold out. I don't believe you can get the refills or the kit in the online store. This one is sold out, but if you're like me, you always have bits left over from your projects. And this one is still available for purchase either as a kit or a refill. My last sample is using Sending Hearts. And this was the Paper Pumpkin kit from January of 2021. And it was designed as a Valentine's set. I have made some lovely Valentines using this set. I wanted to do something different with it that wasn't necessarily a Valentine. So I paired it with the Snailed It bundle. This is now retired, but at the time that this Paper Pumpkin was released in January of 2021, this was a current bundle, and they were designed to match. So there's actually a stamp in this kit of a snail. You can see it right here, a cute little snail with a heart shell, and I used that right here on my card. The red background paper is one of the card bases. You can see it here, and I cut it apart and used it as my matting layer, and I also used a die and cut a little heart out there. This background to the sentiment label is from this card base, and I punched a tailored tag, clouds out of the Brilliant Rainbow dies. And then the mushrooms came from the Snailed It bundle, and they are in the kit. Oh, actually, this is where I got the heart. I also got the heart from Snailed It. This paper here is Bermuda Bay. The yellow mushrooms are Daffodil Delight. And what I did was I cut an extra yellow mushroom and 2 extra Bermuda Bay mushrooms so that I could use the waste to fill in these and make them 2 tones. I used the new blending brushes to blend the sky and also another one to blend the grass. I borrowed the grass stamp from the Catching Butterflies stamp set, which retired during celebration that just retired 2 days ago on February 28th. And I use my Stampin' Blends to color in both of my snails. This is a little embellishment from the Resin Heart embellishments. Those are also retired, but they were just on the clearance rack, so you likely may have them too. I got the ribbon from the kit. So in the January 2021 kit, we were given this spool with black ribbon, and so I used that ribbon for my pull tab. Now in this kit, the ink spot was Poppy Parade. I wanted to minimize the amount of red on the card. Again, I didn't want this to look like a Valentine. I wanted it to look like a love note that I'm going to give to my husband. So I used the Bermuda Bay and Blushing Bride on the inside. You can see I cut another heart from the snail dies. And I just wanted this to feel like a love note for any day of the year, not necessarily a Valentine. Valentine's was just about 2 weeks ago. So these are my 5 samples for Paper Pumpkin Alternatives. I could have made more, but these were the kits that I still had the pieces and parts for the cards that I wanted to make and show you. I hope you've gotten some good inspiration to maybe pull out some of those past kits where you made a few cards and you sent them for their intended purpose, but you didn't get to finish the kit and you still have some bits left. I encourage you to go back and look at those Paper Pumpkin bits and see what kind of really fun slider cards that you can make and really enjoy those kits and put them to great use. I'm having a great time with Safari Celebration. I hope you are too. And as a reminder, I'm going to link to other videos so that if you would like to, you can watch the original video on how I made slider cards with horizontal scenes using the Driving By set. You may still have that stamp set. or also my second video where I made vertical cards. I featured the Seize the Day bundle, and earlier I showed you the sample with the jellyfish. This is my sample with the octopus. So there's some really cute cards in there. Plus, I have a whole stack with 7 other samples for you in that video. So I encourage you to check it out and see all of my other fun samples. And I really appreciate you joining me. If you've enjoyed today's video, I'd appreciate it if you'd give it a thumbs up. That helps me be found in searches on YouTube. And I'd also love it if you'd leave me a comment and let me know which of these paper pumpkin samples is your favorite. Do you like Berry Comforting, Safari Celebration, A Kitten Color, Batter Up, or Sending Hearts? I'd love to know which one's your favorite. I think this one is my favorite. Oh, I don't know. I love them all. I love this. I love them all. I can't decide, but I'd love to hear from you and find out which one you love the best. So please leave me a comment. As always, if you don't have a Stampin' Up! Demonstrator, I'd love to be your Stampin' Up! Demonstrator. If you're not subscribed to Paper Pumpkin and you'd like to give it a try, please contact me and I'd be happy to help you get started with your Paper Pumpkin subscription. Each month I have a virtual online meetup to work on our paper pumpkin kits, and you can dial in and work on assembling your paper pumpkin kits with other subscribers and enjoy some fellowship while you get to stamp. If you're interested in purchasing the artfully composed paper or the tropical dies that I use to cut out that leaf, or any other product like the tailored tag punch, the double oval punch, anything that I might have used to supplement these kits, please look for a link down in the description that will take you to my online store where you can purchase anything that's available on the Stampin' Up! Website. Thank you so much for joining me. Until the next time. Bye.